this meeting to order.
May be looking at the clock and it's about 2 minutes to 12. I have the official time on the computer. It is 12 o'clock. Alors, c'est midi.
It is noon, so we're going to get started. Welcome to the 16th meeting of the House of Commons Special Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic.
A hybrid meeting. Members will be participating via video conference or in person.
As a reminder that in order to avoid issues with sound, members participating in person should also not be connected to the video conference.
Please wait until I recognize you by name and please direct your remarks through the chair.
For those joining via video conference, I would like to remind you to leave your mic on mute when you're not speaking. Also, please note that if you want to speak in English, you should be on the English channel. If you want to speak in French, you should be on the French channel. And should you wish to alternate between the two languages, you should change the channel to the language that you are speaking each time you switch languages.
Should members participate by video conference, need to request the floor outside their designated speaking times, they should activate their mics and state that they have a point of order. Those in the chamber can rise in the usual way. Please note that today's proceedings will be televised in the same way as a typical sitting of the House. Now, I understand that we do not have any ministerial statements this morning, so we'll go straight to presenting petitions. The first petition goes to Ms. May. Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm honored to rise to present a petition that focuses on the appalling practice petitioners draw to our attention of unethical organ harvesting from Falun Gong prisoners held in the People's Republic of China. They asked this House to enact legislation that would require mandatory reporting of transplant tourism or for patients that would need aftercare in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The next one, the next petition goes to Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honor to bring this petition forward on behalf of people from Courtenay, Alberni. They're concerned about the 12,000 deaths, the brothers and sisters and daughters and fathers and family members that have died due to preventable overdose from fentanyl poison sources. And this is timely, Mr. Speaker, as the community action team in Port Alberni identified that we've had 10 times as many deaths from opioid poisoning since the COVID outbreak. And in fact, in April in British Columbia alone, we had 117 people die of overdose, Mr. Speaker. They're calling on the government to declare the current opioid overdose and fentanyl poisoning crisis a national public health emergency under the Emergencies Act in order to manage and resource it with the aim to reduce and eliminate preventable deaths, to reform current drug policy to decriminalize personal possession. This is supported by BC Chief Medical Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry. Third, to create with urgency and immediacy a system to provide safe and unadulterated access to substances so that people who use substances experimentally, recreationally, or chronically are not at imminent risk of overdose due to a contaminated source. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to give a shout out to our Chief Medical Health Officer on Central Vancouver Island, Dr. Hasselbach, who's retiring, who's done great work in standing up for people that are suffering from opioid addiction and the most marginalized. Thank you.
I just want to remind the honourable members that when presenting petitions, as concise as possible would be appreciated and asked of you. We'll now go on to Mr. Genuis. Mr. Genuis.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I don't know if this has ever happened before, but I'm going to agree with Ms. May and present a petition also on the issue of forced organ harvesting. I hope that we'll be able to see broad consensus among all parties for making the 43rd Parliament the one that actually finally gets a bill passed to combat forced organ harvesting and trafficking.
And now we'll go on presenting petitions. Mr. Lamoureux.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's with pleasure that I table a petition from the residents of Winnipeg North highlighting the very important issue of establishing a national pharmacare program. They are calling upon the Prime Minister and the government, in fact, all members of Parliament, to do what they can in working with the other jurisdictions, in particular the provinces, to come up with a national pharmacare program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very good. Now we'll look presenting petitions. Seeing none, we'll continue to statements by members. The first one goes to Ms. Zarowitz. Ms. Zarowitz.
Mr. Speaker, bon dia. For the third year, Canada is celebrating June as Portugal Heritage Month, where we highlight and appreciate the great contributions of Portuguese Canadians to Canada. Since arriving in Canada in the 1950s from all regions and islands of Portugal, Canadian society has been enriched by Portuguese culture, traditions, history, and language. Canadians now listen to fado music, share the Portuguese great love of football, appreciate Portuguese port, wines, and cuisine, whether it's churrasqueira, bacalhau, or pastéis de nata. Portuguese Canadians, a community that is now 500,000 strong, have also contributed greatly to building a better Canada, whether it be through world-renowned artists such as Shawn Mendes and Nelly Furtado, professionals such as Superior Court Justice Madame Linares de Souza, or athletes such as Toronto Maple Leafs John Tavares or Olympian Megan Benfeito. I'm so proud to represent Canada's largest Portuguese community as a Member of Parliament for Davenport. Feliz Mês de Cultura de Portugal. Happy Portuguese Heritage Month. Obrigada, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now go to Mr. Vidal. Mr. Vidal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today I rise to recognize people from all corners of Desnethe, Mississippi Churchill River, from north to south, east to west, and all points in between. People have selflessly stepped up to make life a little easier for others. The young and the young at heart made masks for healthcare workers, delivered food and supplies to seniors and other vulnerable residents, and they decorated for parades to encourage their communities. One lady even communicated in Dene to demonstrate how to make and wear masks, how to properly wash your hands, and demonstrated how COVID-19 might spread in your community. Others cut out paper hearts to place in windows. They encouraged and thanked frontline workers with gift baskets. And many businesses changed the way they operate by instituting preventative measures to protect their staff and their customers. To all, I say a great thank you. Mr. Chair, my riding is the third largest among the provinces, but at times like this, it just seems like one small town.
Go on to Mr. Oliphant. Mr. Oliphant.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As this is my first time speaking at this special parliamentary committee, I want to thank you and your team and the clerk's team for your tremendous efforts in keeping the People's House open through this unprecedented time. There have been extraordinary efforts across the country, including in the neighborhoods of Don Valley West in Midtown Toronto. To recognize them, I've launched a Pandemic Heroes Award program, encouraging people to nominate exceptional residents of Don Valley West who are helping others to ensure they are healthy, safe, economically able to survive, if not thrive, through this time. Many of those heroes are at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Centre in the heart of our community. Sunnybrook admitted the first COVID-19 patient in Canada, and since then has continued to offer care to countless others. I salute the nurses, physicians, attendants, caretakers, cooks, administrators, funders, and researchers who have set a standard of care that is second to none. To all pandemic heroes across the country, thank you. May you be healthy and safe as we beat this virus.
Now we're going to continue with Ms. Bérubé. Chairman, 1 year ago, the National Inquiry tabled its report on missing and murdered Indigenous women. Already 1 year since 2 years of work and over 1,400 meetings were held with survivors of victims of violence and families. Chair, Indigenous communities had to mobilize for years to obtain that commission. And 1 year after the tabling of the report, we must pay tribute to their solidarity and tenacity. And above all, we must ensure this government doesn't shelve this report. Violence, racism, discrimination, over-incarceration, and most importantly, the murders of Indigenous women must cease. We have the duty to reconcile with First Peoples, and for all too long, we have turned a deaf ear to the cries of their distress. We must not forget that, and this must never happen again. Thank you. We're going to continue now with Mr. Shefke. It's an honor for me to rise today in the House to highlight the exceptional work of the members of my community of Vaudreuil-Soulanges. As we go through this tough time caused by COVID-19, I would like to thank every frontline worker and every volunteer helping to fight this crisis. Whether it's nurses working overtime, firefighters helping out at long-term care homes, restaurants, food banks providing food for families in need, and the many community organizations helping vulnerable people, your hard work is honorable. And on behalf of our community, I applaud your commitment to your fellow citizens.
Continue to represent the best of our community as the fight against COVID-19 goes on. And Mr. Speaker, I extend my sincere thanks to all those in my community of Vaudreuil-Soulanges who continue to go above and beyond every day. We are and continue to be stronger together. Merci. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We now go on to Ms. Finley. Ms. Finley.
Can you hear me now?
You're on.
Thanks. Mr. Speaker, our world is in turmoil. We are told to stay home, yet thousands crowd in the streets. Parliamentary oversight is gone. Our national debt is unknown. My BC constituents think that I should be in Ottawa, not on a laptop screen. The UN says we must shift into a green new, build back better world order with redistribution of wealth in the trillions. This government seems fully on board, but hasn't told Canadians yet. We should forge a Canadian way, not take orders from the UN, Asia, EU, or U.S. consultants. We cannot live on our knees in deference to faraway third parties. We must care for the environment and seniors, help employers, workers, and youth move forward, and look to our foundational resources that the world needs and wants. We are a free nation under God with true patriot love. We are strong. Our land is glorious. Notre histoire est une épopée. Central planners, get out of our way.
We're now going to Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Speaker, in Waterloo Region, we are flying pride flags at all our public schools. To kick off Pride Month in Kitchener-Conestoga, the theme of my weekly virtual town hall was inclusivity and our LGBTQ plus community. I want to thank Washington Silk from KW Counseling's OK to Be Me program for joining in this discussion, and thank everyone who participated. Conversations in support of equality and inclusion are essential, especially at a time when we are challenged by a global pandemic and heightened injustices. Pride events will be virtual this year. Though we're not walking together in parades, know that we are standing together in solidarity for everyone to be who they are and love who they love. I'm proud to support our friends in the LGBTQ plus community, and as we celebrate progress, we must also commit to the work that still needs to be done. Discrimination still exists, and as long as it does, we must always stand up and speak up for LGBTQ plus rights. As pride flags are unfurled, let us stand together across our communities and throughout Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now go to Ms. Damoff. Ms. Damoff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since the pandemic began, I've been working with urban Indigenous organizations to ensure that they had the support they needed to deliver their services. The majority of Indigenous peoples in Canada live in urban areas or off reserve, and we know that they're facing unique challenges. Organizations like the Toronto Aboriginal Support Services Council have had to change their service delivery models to provide food, shelter, and culturally appropriate services. Recently, the Prime Minister announced $75 million to support Indigenous peoples living in urban centres and off reserve. This funding is in addition to the $15 million allocated in March to urban Indigenous organizations. June is Indigenous History Month, and on June 18th, I will be hosting author Jesse Thistle to talk about his memoir, From the Ashes, which highlights many of the issues that Indigenous peoples face in urban centres. I'm proud of what our government is doing, and I know there is still more work to do.
We'll now go to Mr. Hallan. Mr. Hallan.
I'm honored to recognize the outstanding work that the Dashmesh Culture Centre, through the leadership of President Amanpreet Singh Gill and the entire Executive Committee, has displayed throughout this pandemic. The Gurdwara has a food bank run by some amazing youth, and through kind donations of the community at large, is never low in supply. They see about 25 hampers given out daily. They have their hard-working volunteers make and serve 500 meals, and these are hot meals that are given through their drive-through service or delivery. They provide 100 hot free meals to our hard-working truck drivers daily. They deliver 400 meals with the Salvation Army and brown bag lunches for those kids that don't have access to lunch. These services are helping the most vulnerable during this difficult time, including our seniors. Sikhs believe in a concept of seva, or selfless service, and the Dashmesh Culture Centre, through the hard work of the Executive Committee and the volunteers, have fully displayed this by stepping up during the pandemic.
We'll now go to Ms. Martinez-Fernara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. At a certain time in our life, we've had to turn to food banks, and I understand the great anxiety of those who've had to do this, especially if you have young children. And I'd like to thank the community kitchen of Hochelaga Maisonneuve that served more than 17,500 people with 53,000 meals. And I'd like to thank all the volunteers that provide 200 food baskets every week and more than 600 bags of fruits and vegetables. These organizations couldn't do this work without the help of Cyclistes Solidaires. These committed cyclists efficiently and rapidly deliver this food. And most importantly, they are eco-responsible. What an extraordinary example of solidarity in Hochelaga. Thank you. We're going to continue now with Mr. Genereux. Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to underscore all the work of the citizens in my riding who have given their time since this pandemic started, whether it's the food banks, public services, volunteers. They contribute to the well-being of our community. And I would like to also pay tribute to the resilience of our entrepreneurs and companies that are trying to get back to work in spite of difficulties and upcoming challenges. We continue to support them over the past 3 months. We're trying to find solutions so we can improve government services for companies so we don't turn our backs on them. I'm proud to represent my riding, and I'm very proud of my people, and we hope things will continue to go well. Thank you.
Mr. Kitchen.
Mr. Chair, as Canadian democracy crumbles and the government silences any kind of political opposition, it can be challenging to see the good in the world. Thankfully, the people in my riding of Souris Moose Mountain are shining a light in the darkness by sharing stories of people coming together to help those in need. One such story is of Fast Trucking based in Cardiff, who's struggling to keep the company going during the Liberal attack on the oil industry. When they were hit with the COVID-19 pandemic, company president Dennis Day was forced to lay off 250 of his employees. Realizing this would leave many in limbo while waiting for government assistance, Dennis bought $50,000 worth of Co-op grocery gift cards and distributed those to those who he laid off. This kindness in the face of adversity truly exemplifies what the people of Saskatchewan are all about. Fast Trucking has shown that while they are a business, they are a family first. Thank you to Dennis, his mother Vi, his family, and to all my constituents for showing such bravery and unity in these uncertain times.
Go to Mr. Bacharach.
Mr. Speaker, many owners of small businesses in Northwest BC are hurting due to the pandemic, including those in tourism, retail, and the restaurant sector. I'm talking about small local businesses, lots of them family-run, many of them with only 1 or 2 employees. There's a real risk some of these won't survive the pandemic, and for some, it's already too late. Yet despite the dire outlook, I've seen local business people respond with resilience, resourcefulness, and optimism. With the help of local chambers of commerce and groups like Community Futures, they're finding ways to weather the storm. This government needs to have their back. That means fixing the commercial rent relief program, starting with a moratorium on business evictions. It means targeted support for tourism operators, and it means keeping programs like the wage subsidy around long enough to help businesses get back on their feet. Our small towns depend on local businesses, their owners, and their employees. We must do more to help them survive.
Now we're going to Mr. Beaulieu. Mr. Chairman, Gilles Duceppe often said that in Canada there are really only two official languages, English and simultaneous translation. But during the COVID-19 crisis, even translation has often fallen by the wayside, whether it's labeling of hazardous products or all the daily press conferences. As this crisis drags on, 1/3 of Franco-Ontarian organizations fear closure in the next 6 months and half over the next year. Francophone and Acadian communities are mobilizing to ensure the survival of the Saint Jean campus, the only post-secondary school in French in Western Manitoba, while the Liberals have both hands in taxpayers' pockets by benefiting from the wage subsidy. I would like to remind them that funding of French services in Canada was already generally insufficient before the crisis. Therefore, I ask the government to show the same spirit of generosity to Francophones in Canada as it has shown to the employees of the Liberal Party. Thank you.
Mr. Kent. Mr. Kent.
Chair, it's a pleasure to be back in the House, this chamber, effectively the beating heart of our Canadian democracy. Unfortunately, the heartbeat of this place is suffering a prolonged arrhythmia brought on by the disgraceful neutering of responsible government by a Liberal minority, aided and abetted by the NDP, who not only voted for closure of debate, but closure of Parliament until late September. Folks watching this temporary committee at home may think they're watching a parliamentary sitting. It is anything but. Mr. Chair, it's going to take more than the defibrillators scattered around this building to shock this place back to life, to enable the holding of this hubristic Liberal government to account through the continuing COVID-19 health and economic crisis. That's what Canadians expect. That's what Canadians deserve. Canada remains in crisis, and the heart of our democracy should be beating on all cylinders with appropriate health and safety protocols. Please excuse the mixed metaphor.
We'll go to Mr. Arya. Mr. Arya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm thankful to many individuals and organizations in Ottawa who worked very hard to combat this COVID-19 crisis. In particular, I would like to thank the Chinese Community Association of Ottawa and its president, Jin Shea, and his team, who raised $165,000 to purchase ventilators for the Ottawa Hospital and personal protective equipment to frontline healthcare workers. I would also like to recognize the Indo-Canadian Community Centre and its president, Kanwal Talwar, and his team, who donated $77,000 to the Ottawa Hospital Foundation, Shepherds of Good Hope, Ottawa Food Bank, and the Ottawa Mission. In addition, the Indo-Canadian community also donated meals, masks, gowns to frontline medical staff of all Ottawa hospitals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We are now going to proceed to questioning of ministers.
The proceedings every 45 minutes in order to allow employees who provide support for the setting to substitute each other safely. The first question goes to the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The government created the Canadian Infrastructure Bank in June of 2017. They gave this bank $35 billion. They appointed a CEO in May of 2018. The CEO left on April 20th of 2020. The Prime Minister gave the departing CEO a massive bonus, a bonus so big he's afraid to tell Canadians what it was. So, simple question for the Prime Minister. How many projects did the Canadian Infrastructure Bank complete since its inception?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we created the Canadian Infrastructure Bank to leverage private capital along with public money to create more projects, because we knew that investing in infrastructure for communities, for growth, for Canadians was significantly important. They've invested in a number of large projects that are underway. We know infrastructure investments will make Canada better.
So how many projects were completed from the Canadian Infrastructure Bank?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, large infrastructure projects take many years to create, but they have a positive impact on communities. That's why we've invested in infrastructure.
Now we'll go back to Mr.
Chair, the Prime Minister said that they came up with this scheme to build more infrastructure projects. So how many projects have been completed?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know that building infrastructure is a way to build stronger futures for Canadians. That's exactly what we're doing.
Mr. Scheer.
So how many projects were completed?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
A number of projects are underway right now, and there are more to come.
Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Speaker, when people get a bonus for doing a job, it's usually because they exceeded expectations. How many projects have been completed from the Canadian Infrastructure Bank?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are a number of large projects underway and more to come.
The Canadian Infrastructure Bank has an operating cost of approximately $50 million a year. What has the Canadian taxpayer received for that $50 million a year? In other words, how many projects have been completed? The Prime Minister can't answer a simple question. How many projects have been completed?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over 10 years under Stephen Harper, Conservatives underinvested in infrastructure. Therefore, over the past 5 years, we have made significant investments in infrastructure that have created jobs and growth for Canadians.
Mr. Scheer.
The previous Conservative government invested in ports and bridges and roads and airports. This Canadian Infrastructure Bank has taken $35 billion from Canadian taxpayers. They've just paid the outgoing CEO a massive bonus. A bonus is usually given for a job well done, exceeding expectations. So far, it looks like the Canadian Infrastructure Bank has completed 0 projects. Has that exceeded the Prime Minister's expectations?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, investing in infrastructure is a way of creating jobs now, but also creating growth and prosperity into the future. That's why we moved forward with an innovative idea that is going to create more infrastructure across this country that Canadians need.
Mr. Scheer.
An innovative idea that protects the investment of wealthy hedge funds and puts all the risks on the backs of taxpayers. Now, he says this is an innovative idea. So how many projects have been built by this innovative idea?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are a number of projects underway and more to come. We know that investing in infrastructure, investing in our communities is a better way of building the future than cuts that Conservatives have done for years.
What actually improves the quality of life in our communities is for projects to be completed. It's easy to make announcements about projects, Mr. Speaker, but this bank has been in operation for almost 3 years now. So once again, if the answer is 0, why doesn't he just say 0? How many projects has the Infrastructure Bank completed?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are a number of projects underway across the country. These are things that take many years to do, but we know that investing in infrastructure, unlike what the Conservatives have always done, is the way to build a stronger future for this country.
Scheer.
What exactly did the CEO accomplish that warranted a massive bonus on his way out?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, setting up the Canada Infrastructure Bank is an important part of making sure that Canadians have the infrastructures they need for their lives and for the growth in the economy.
Back to Mr. Scheer.
So is the Prime Minister telling us that when he announced the Infrastructure Bank in June of 2017, that he had 0 expectations for any projects built and that he was going to pay a massive payout to a CEO just for setting up a new government agency?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, investing in infrastructure is a way to grow the economy, create jobs for Canadians and create a brighter future. That's what we've been focused on.
Maintenant, nous allons continuer avec Monsieur Blanchet.
We'll now continue with Mr. Blanchet. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Over the past 24 hours, we've discovered that the Prime Minister's silence is clearer than the actual words he makes. And it may well be, in fact, that he wants to be silent here again today, but that's not the objective. I'm wondering if he's seen the results of a poll by Léger that says that 48% of Quebecers think that the Liberal Party shouldn't be eligible for the wage subsidy, compared to 27% of people who think they should. 40% of Liberal voters think that the Liberal Party shouldn't have accessed or shouldn't be using the wage subsidy. Should they not do as our esteemed Conservative colleagues have and not use it? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The wage subsidy was put in place to help companies and organizations across the country to support people working for them. We're talking about accountants, translators, people who work in offices, people with families depending on a paycheck during the COVID-19 crisis. We're there to help people across the country. Mr. Blanchet, how many times can the same empty answer be repeated? Does the Prime Minister realize that 57% of Quebecers think that he should reimburse the wage subsidy, compared to 21% who think that the party should keep it? And the majority of the 51% of Liberal voters think that he should be reimbursing it. And that must be something that they're hearing in their Liberal constituency offices, people saying it makes no sense. Does the Prime Minister, or is the Prime Minister starting to think about this ethical issue? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. This crisis, Mr. Chairman, is unprecedented. We are investing to help workers across the country who are working in large corporations and small companies, organizations that are not for profit, charitable organizations. We are here to help people who depend on a paycheck to help their families. Mr. Blanchet, it's increasingly clear that silence says more than words. How much money has the Liberal Party received from the wage subsidy? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Chairman, the wage subsidy is in place to help workers. It is money that is paid to workers across the country, not to corporations or organizations. Workers are the one. We'll go back to Mr. Blanchet. The Prime Minister is confusing the issue. Why and what for? I'm only asking how much. Does the Prime Minister realize that he's putting the Liberal Party of Canada in an irregular financing situation? Because under election rules, this might well even be illegal funding for the Liberal Party. I know it doesn't bother him, but it does bother us. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Chairman, workers in organizations and companies across the country may well lose their jobs because of COVID-19, and they're very happy that the government made the choice it did to support those workers. Workers in all kinds of institutions to ensure that the country can recover, that families can help their loved ones. Mr. Blanchet, does the Prime Minister realize that he or the Minister of Finance is putting himself into a conflict of interest position because he will have given to an institution, the Liberal Party of Canada, money, the job of which is to get the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance re-elected? Is the Prime Minister looking for a third ethical breach? Mr. Chairman, wage subsidies go to workers from many organizations, including several political parties. We are here to help workers who are running the risk of losing their jobs. So we are supporting families, and that is what we are doing across the country. Mr. Blanchet, you have about 20 seconds. Well, I'm wondering if the jobs at the Liberal Party were in jeopardy, if the Liberal Party was facing difficulties. He didn't want to answer, and now he's reinventing this here today. Mr. Chairman, could you ask the Prime Minister if he plans to extend the wage subsidy program to get another amount of money, twice as much money for the Liberal Party? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Chairman, people are concerned about their future across the country. They're concerned about losing their jobs. We are here as a government to help them. We will continue to do so. We'll now move on to Mr. Singh.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For a year now, a year that Indigenous women and girls have been promised an answer on the missing and murdered Indigenous women, but we still haven't seen an answer. Why is it taking so long?
Minister.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. This first anniversary is a time when we pay tribute to Indigenous women and girls who have seen horrific situations. We will continue to be there for them. Mr. Singh.
Well, the Prime Minister could be there for Indigenous communities by responding to their calls for justice. Will the Prime Minister put in place a national plan to address violence as asked for by the Missing, Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Calls for Justice?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we were the government that, after decades of non-action by governments, moved forward with a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. But we didn't wait for that inquiry to get going or even end before taking action. We acted right away on countering violence against women, on helping...
We'll now go back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
Will the Prime Minister immediately dramatically change policing in Canada as asked for by Indigenous women and girls?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have made changes to our justice system. We have worked with partners across the country, and we will continue to make sure that our justice system and our policing is safer and more respectful of Indigenous peoples.
Mr. Singh.
Why the delay? It's been 1 year. Will the government respond without delay to the Indigenous communities' calls for justice?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been responding for 5 years and taking action for 5 years. We did not wait for the end of this inquiry to act. We passed legislation on child and family services to protect Indigenous language and culture, to eliminate gender discrimination under the...
I'll go back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
Will the government, will the Prime Minister immediately ensure that there is core funding for health services for the Indigenous community as requested by in one of the calls for justice?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have increased funding to Indigenous communities by billions of dollars over the past years. We've invested directly around this COVID crisis. We will continue to invest in Indigenous communities and health services because we know we need to do more.
Go back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
Simple question. It's been 1 year since the calls for justice were put forward. Why is the government delaying to respond?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been acting on those calls for justice over the past year, and we will continue to. The COVID-19 crisis has delayed the work by our partners and us on the response.
Back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
Ça fait 5 semaines.
For 5 weeks now, we've been urging the government to provide assistance for people living with a disability in Canada. 5 weeks, no action. What's the government waiting for to help these people immediately? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Chairman, we've helped many Canadians, and we acknowledge that more needs to be done. We are currently working on assistance for people living with a disability. We realize that they are facing additional difficulties because of COVID, and we will be there for them.
Pandemic, Canadians living with a disability have received no extra help, and they need extra help. Why is the Liberal government, why is the Prime Minister delaying in providing that essential help to Canadians living with disabilities?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been giving extra help to Canadians who need it, but we recognize there is more to do. That's why we will be coming forward with a package of supports for Canadians living with disabilities. We recognize they are facing extra costs because of COVID-19. We will be there for them.
Mr. Singh.
But it's been 5 weeks, Mr. Speaker. It's been 5 weeks since we pushed the government to commit to helping Canadians living with disability. Why is it taking so long to help out those who are amongst the most vulnerable? Why is the Prime Minister delaying to help those in need?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of this pandemic, we have moved to help vulnerable Canadians, moved to help Canadians who lost their paychecks. The CERB is delivering help to over 8 million Canadians, millions more receiving the wage subsidy. We're investing in helping small businesses. We're investing in helping our seniors, our youth, and we are doing more for...
Go back to Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh.
Mr. Speaker, the government has certainly moved after... We have to push the Prime Minister to deliver on that promise made in a unanimous consent motion passed in this House. We need, again, this government to follow through, not with the pretty words, but we need the action. Canadians living with disabilities need help. When will they get the help?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the action has been from this government. The rhetoric and words have always been from the NDP. We've taken concrete action to help Canadians, to invest in their families, to support small businesses, to get Canadians through this pandemic, and we will continue to. Canadians with disabilities, young people, seniors, hardworking Canadians, we will continue to be there for them with action, not words.
We'll now go to Mr. Albus. Mr. Albus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Action, not words. For months, we've been asking what the government plans to do for expectant parents who, due to COVID-19, will not be able to attain the hours necessary to access full parental benefits. Now, the Minister of Employment has said she's looking into this. Would the minister tell these parents and these parliamentarians that are assembled today how she plans to fix this problem?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can assure everyone in the House that we know that there are many groups of people who, because of COVID and for COVID reasons, will not have accumulated sufficient hours or time to access EI benefits. As I committed to the member, we are working on it. It is a tough system to navigate, but I can assure everybody we will figure this out and be there for all Canadians.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Chair, we have been asking about this for months, and still the government has no solution. This isn't a problem for the future. Canadians are having children right now and are 40 or 50 hours short of the benefits due to COVID-19. The minister has had ample time, and Canadians are falling through the cracks. When will the government ensure these parents are not left behind?
The Honourable Minister.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I appreciate the difficult situation, particularly of expected parents who are wondering if they're going to have the EI support they need. I can assure them we're working through this. As I've told the member, it is complicated. That's not an excuse. We will deliver for Canadians. Thank you.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Chair, we have been told that CERB claims for EI eligible people are being paid from the employment insurance account. Is that accurate?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can confirm that that is accurate.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Chair, can the minister please tell us what the current balance of the EI account is?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't have that information at my fingertips, but I can provide it to the member.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Chair, it would seem to me that the minister should know at least a ballpark. Can the minister please let us know, is there a modest surplus?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would prefer, in respect of this House, to give him an accurate answer, which I will promise to provide as soon as possible.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Chair, this is a pretty easy question. At least give us a ballpark. Am I getting warmer when I say a modest deficit, a large deficit? Could the minister please just tell us in general where the EI account is? Is it in positive surplus or negative?
The Honourable Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, I commit to get that information to the member, but would prefer not to provide this House in any way an inaccurate number. Thank you.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Chair, this minister has told me she would respond to letters. We've sent over 6 letters and we have not received them. We need to have more transparency from this government. The minister has said she will get a number. Can she give me an idea of when? Would the end of the week be too soon?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I assume the end of the week is possible. I will commit to let the member know by the end of the day exactly when he'll get that information and follow up on all of his correspondence.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Chair, for weeks we've been asking why the government was turning a blind eye to fraud in the CERB, and the government said they had no choice if they wanted to get the money out fast. Now we know they'll be looking into fraud all through a CRA snitch line. So the government did have a choice for the past 2 months, and they chose to ignore fraud until now. Why is that?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, we are by no means ignoring fraud. When we committed to deliver this benefit to Canadians as quickly as possible, we moved some of our integrity measures, and I emphasize some, to the back end of this process. But I can assure everyone in this House and Canadians that we will absolutely follow up, and people who received inappropriate payments will be paying those back. Thank you.
Mr. Albus.
Mr. Chair, this government directed public servants when public servants raised red flags as to people not being eligible for the benefit, they directed them to pay them out anyway. Now they've put up a snitch line encouraging Canadians to phone in if they believe their neighbors are misusing it. Why did they not put more onus on the front-end measures to make sure those red flagged accounts were dealt with in a timely way? We're not talking about cutting benefits off to everyone. Mr. Speaker, Canadians want to know why the government has done this way.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I assume the member would agree that when we asked employees to process claims differently, moving from EI to CERB, that we had to give them operational direction in order to do so. I can also, again, re-emphasize that we were first focused on getting an efficient and quick benefit to as many people as possible, but we have not in any way compromised the integrity of this program.
We'll now go to Mr. d'Entremont. Mr. d'Entremont.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My question is to the Minister of Agriculture. In the Annapolis Valley, a berry producer is facing significant losses due to COVID-19. With a 1-month delay in bringing foreign workers and adding their 14-day quarantine, Millen Farms is facing 25 to 40% loss of their planned strawberry harvest. In addition to being fewer than last year, missing 50 foreign workers means less work is being done. Since the rules of social distancing is also creating a lot of problems when it comes to UPIC, it's very difficult for them to recoup in that manner. How are these government programs helping berry producers like Millen Farms?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, we have in Canada business risk management that are there to help. We all remember that in 2013, these programs have been cut in a significant way by the previous government, and I'm working very hard with my provincial counterpart to improve these programs. But these programs offer, on an average year, $1.6 billion. Only in the Agri-Invest account, there's $2.3 billion. And especially for the temporary foreign workers program, we have put forward $50 million, which means $1,500 per worker to support our producers. Mr. Speaker, we'll
now go back to Mr. d'Entremont. Monsieur d'Entremont.
How about this? Last year, Louise Endries, a blueberry producer in my riding, was affected by Hurricane Dorian last year, which damaged a large portion of her fields and caused substantial loss. This year, her annual foreign workers arrived, and of course there was fewer of them. Hectares of blueberry bushes aren't being pruned for optimum growth. In order to meet the criteria for financial assistance from the government, producers must provide financial statements from last year to show the losses. In this case, last year was also a year of losses due to Hurricane Dorian. What kind of support can this producer expect?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So there are two programs under actually three, but let's talk about two programs under the business risk management. Agri-insurance is a program that is there specially to face natural disasters. And the other one is Agri-Stability when they are facing significant losses in their revenues. And there's still the Agri-Invest programs that they can have access to. But we understand there are still gaps to be filled, and we are working on these different options right now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
d'Entremont.
In this morning's news, we learned that an Annapolis Valley tomato producer had to abandon production of 26,000 tomato plants since he was only able to hire 4 of his normal 18 Mexican laborers since they've been blocked due to delays due to COVID-19. So no locals are responding to the ads to help since the government has basically paid them to stay home for another month or so. Producers do not believe that this government has their back. What should I tell producers when they're desperately asking for support?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can assure you that I understand the challenges that our farmers are facing right now. I'm in constant conversation with them, with their representatives, with my provincial counterparts. We have worked really hard, and it's impressive what the Immigration Department has made in terms of facilitating the venue of these workers. Same thing with our colleagues from in particular the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who's supporting us in facilitating these workers to come to Canada. In addition, we have put in place this.
Now go back to Mr. d'Entremont. Mr. d'Entremont.
Thank you very much. My next question is a follow-up from last week's question that I did to the Minister of Public Safety when it came to the mass shooting in Nova Scotia. I asked about the secrecy surrounding the file, the investigation that was ongoing, and the move to push for an inquiry. Today, the Justice Minister in Nova Scotia, one of the minister's partners, confirmed that Nova Scotia is interested in some kind of review, like an inquiry. When will the government be clear on what such a review will be?
Honourable Minister.
I thank the member opposite very much for an important question. We know that Nova Scotians and all Canadians need clear answers to what transpired and all the circumstances leading up to the mass shooting, the actions that were taken in response, and the restorative actions that need to be in place to support Nova Scotians, the victims, and the families of these terrible crimes. We've been working very closely with the province of Nova Scotia, and as the Attorney General of Nova Scotia indicated in his press conference yesterday, we are very, very close to the actual implementation of this review, and I appreciate the members anxious. We are also anxious. We're working diligently towards putting that in place.
We'll now continue with Mr. Gould. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On March 20th, 2020, the Prime Minister stated that family reunification files and immigration would be a priority. Is that still the case today? The Honourable Minister. Inaudible for the interpreter. Inaudible for the interpreter.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to assure the member opposite that keeping families together and family reunification remains a strong priority for this government.
Mr. Gould.
Mr. Gould. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On March 17th, 2020, 3 days ahead, the Canadian Embassy in Port-au-Prince stopped issuing permanent residence permits that had been approved for family reunification. Does that directive run counter to the Prime Minister's statement?
Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Est-ce que c'est un problème technique?
Is it a technical problem we're facing?
The Honourable Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, quite the contrary. We remain absolutely committed to a robust immigration process, including family reunification. But as of course, we have had to take some very significant, unprecedented steps in order to ensure the health and safety of all Canadians. And so as we work through those important and necessary steps to protect Canadians.
We'll now go back to Mr. Gourde. And before he asks his question, I'd just like to say that while we're waiting, the clock is stopped. Mr. Gould. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like the minister to be able to get his microphone on. Does the government plan to abolish the moratorium on the issuance of permanent residence permits that have already been approved? The Honourable Minister.
We thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is no moratorium. In fact, we have continued to process applications for permanent residence in belief that those who have the skills and experience which are necessary to contribute to the economy will continue to add to it in our recovery post-COVID-19.
The Honourable Minister, Monsieur Gould.
Mr. Gould, since the Minister has just stated that there is no moratorium, then when will those approved files be issued and acted upon? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, of course, we continue to process applications. There is an exemption under the current orders in Council so that anybody who's coming into Canada must abide by the mandatory 14-day isolation period.
Monsieur Gould.
Mr. Gould. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The New Horizons program for seniors is highly appreciated. I'd like to know when the request for proposals will come through for 2020. The Honourable Minister. Inaudible for the interpreter.
It's the mute.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, that seems to be a problem on my machine again. My apologies. I just want to assure the member that we are working right now diligently to assess what funding is already being utilized through past New Horizon funding, and looking at the groups that did not get funding last year and will be.
We'll continue with Mr. Gould. Go ahead. Mr. Chairman, again on the New Horizons program, what are the objectives that have been developed due to COVID, and what changes have been made to the program in order to support our seniors?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I want to make sure is that that the member knows that we have adjusted the program for this year so that groups can address the COVID-19, the way to help seniors best during COVID-19. So they are new parameters.
We'll now go back to Mr. Gould. Go ahead. Mr. Chairman, last year I denounced the complexity created by the government in developing the application form for the New Horizon program. That made it very difficult for organizations to register by filling out the complex form. Has this problem been resolved so that the forms are easier to be filled out?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to assure the member that we're taking all the information that was provided by members and stakeholders to see how we can best improve the program for this coming year. Thank you.
Monsieur Gould.
Mr. Gould. Mr. Chairman, the government has for years been talking about ensuring that all of our regions have good quality internet connectivity. Because of the pandemic and the need for telework, there are many Canadians who are at a disadvantage because of a poor internet connection. So my question is simple. When will this be a real priority for the government, and what action will they take?
The
Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chairman, our government has a plan to provide all Canadians with high-speed internet access, which is reliable and affordable. We have approved projects that will make it possible to connect more than 1 million households across Canada. COVID-19 has underscored the urgency of doing this work, and I assure my colleague that we'll now go on to Mr. Kent.
Mr. Kent.
Thank you, Committee Chair. The Government of Canada speaks generally of 300,000 Canadian citizens in Hong Kong. Can the Minister of Immigration tell us more exactly how many Canadian citizens are currently resident in Hong Kong?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, the first thing I would like to clarify, Mr. Speaker, is that those Canadians who are in Hong Kong and elsewhere have a right to return home. And with regards to those who wish to seek asylum, we have a robust system in place that ensures that everyone making a claim will receive a fair hearing. That will continue.
Kent.
Minister, how many of the Canadian citizens currently resident in Hong Kong, and I would like at least an estimate from you, if you will, currently hold valid Canadian passports? How many have recently made passport applications?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, as my honourable colleague knows, those individuals who hold citizenship do have a right to return home. And of course, we will continue to monitor the situation very closely to ensure that those who wish to exercise that right do so in accordance with the health and safety measures in place at the border.
Mr. Kent.
Chair, these answers underline the deficiencies of this temporary committee. With respect to the Minister, the PMO doesn't like straight answers. At least if the Standing Committee on Immigration was sitting, we would get straight answers from the Deputy Minister, department officials, and the occasional witness allowed by the government. Again, does the Minister have any estimate of the number of Canadian citizens currently resident in Hong Kong?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as my honourable colleague said, that there is an estimate of approximately 300,000 who hold Canadian citizenship. Those individuals do have the right to return home, but when they exercise that right, they must do so in accordance with the travel restrictions in place to reduce the likelihood of the spread of COVID-19.
Mr. Kent.
To the Minister, has the department updated its emergency contingency plans in the event of worst possible outcomes in Hong Kong?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I know that my colleague, the Minister for Global Affairs, is working very closely with our representatives in that region. And in the meantime, our officials are also providing.
Now go back to Mr. Kent. Mr. Kent.
Minister, last year, Canada assigned members of Global Affairs' Standing Rapid Deployment Team to our Consulate General in Hong Kong to assist the mission and Canadian citizens in that territory. Is that team in place today?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for his important questions. We have the current amount of staff that we need in Hong Kong, and as the need would be, Mr. Speaker, we will be prepared like we've done in Wuhan and like we've done when we repatriated Canadians from more than 110 countries. We can deploy these teams. They are a rapid response team, and as the case may be, we would.
Back to Mr. Kent. Mr. Kent.
Thank you, Chair. Again, to the Ministry of Immigration. The supplementary estimates reveal a $200 million line item in the Department of Citizenship and Immigration for the housing of illegal border crossing asylum claimants. This would seem to be a minor down payment on much larger costs borne by Ontario and Quebec and a number of cities. The City of Toronto alone is asking for $77 million this year and years going forward to cover asylum claimant shelter costs, given that the backlog of asylum claimant cases is now more than 90,000 and will stretch for years. Can the Minister answer on supplementary funds beyond this very small initial payment?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, first, I will have more to say about those estimates going forward, but I'm very proud of this government's record when it has come to partnering with cities like Toronto in the support that we're providing with regards to interim housing for refugees and asylum seekers. We will continue to build on that record going forward.
Mr. Kent, a very short question.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. And if I could ask a final question to the Minister of Digital Government, can the Minister tell us whether she read the House of Commons cybersecurity email titled IT Security Alert Risks with the WeChat Application?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister in question has already made clear that this is not part of her own work. This is something else in her network, which is now out of the network, and she has clearly said that the views expressed by that person are not her views.
We'll now go on to Ms. Kusi. Ms. Kusi.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Canadian families who don't normally qualify for the Canada Child Benefit received a payment of approximately $300 per child as a part of the COVID-19 CCB top-up. And when Canadians call Service Canada to report the error and return the benefit, they are being told to donate it to a children's charity if they don't need it. This, in fact, happened to our colleague Rosemary Falk, Member of Parliament for Battleford's Lloydminster. Is the Minister aware of this issue?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we were very proud to be able to deliver to Canadian families an extra CCB payment. I don't know the particulars of this circumstance, but I assure this House I will look into it after this meeting. Thank you.
Ms. Kusi.
Well, neither do Canadians, Mr. Chair. So can the government clarify the criteria that needs to be met for Canadian families at this time to receive the CCB?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the CCB is based on the income of the family, and it is a prorated amount per child, and if you have a child with a disability, it is increased. I can provide details of CCB eligibility to the member, again, Mr. Speaker, after this meeting.
We'll go back to Ms. Kusi. Ms. Kusi.
But there's been no additional tax filings since these new increases were instituted. So then my next question for the minister is, will Canadians who receive the CCB top-up in error be asked to repay it come tax time?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are working on a number of different ways to ensure that any repayments by any people or any families are done as respectfully as possible. Service Canada will be reaching out to individuals. I would propose...
Back to Ms. Kusi. Ms. Kusi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will the government direct Services Canada to ensure that the benefit money is recouped from families which receive the payments in error?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Service Canada is working to ensure that every payment made either in error or in duplicate will indeed be recouped. I can't give her specific details on specific payments, but know that Service Canada is working very hard on this file.
Ms. Kusi.
Will the government deliver the July CCB increases to families that qualify for the CCB, and which families would this be?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the CCB is helping hundreds of thousands of families, especially in this time of need. Families will be getting their CCB payment in July, and I can assure the member that we will ensure that they get the right amount.
Ms. Kusi.
Mr. Chair, the Debate Commission came out Monday with their report on the 2019 election debates and recommended against many of the unilateral rules the Liberal government, imposed because they delegitimized the Commission. They recommended the Commission to be established through legislation so that there would be parliamentary accountability. They recommended that next time all political parties in the House of Commons be consulted for the appointment of the Commissioner. And finally, they recommended that the participation criteria be set by the Commission and not the Liberal government. Will this Liberal government admit that their dictatorial approach to this Debates Commission was an affront to Canadian democracy?
The Honourable Minister.
Say yes.
No, Mr. Speaker, it won't surprise my honourable colleague that we won't admit to that because she knows it's not accurate. We have always believed that debates play an essential role in the electoral process. They should be fair. They should be put together in a transparent way. We've taken note of the Right Honourable David Johnston's report. We're obviously looking at it carefully, and I would look forward to receiving suggestions from all members on how we can look to implementing the recommendations of this very worthy report. Unlike the Conservative government, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, under Prime Minister Harper, we don't seek to...
We'll now go back to Ms. Kusi. Ms. Kusi.
Well, thank you very much for the mansplanation. As the former shadow minister for democratic institutions, I think I know very clearly how the Debate Commission was set up. So will the Liberal government start respecting democracy and apply these crucial recommendations for the next election debates?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, again, Mr. Chair, we take no lessons from the Conservatives on respecting democracy. We're proud of the report. We look forward to working with all members to implement those recommendations in the appropriate way.
Now, we're going to go to Mr. Blanchet. Chair, thank you very much. The whole challenge of long-term care homes in Quebec is a health care issue. It is a security issue and one that can save lives. The rest is secondary. The few soldiers that I know tell me that they are very proud to be able to help out, to protect and help people who sometimes are their own grandparents. And we know that during this crisis, time is a key issue. Every day is one that we could lose and we need to move forward on. In this particular context, can the government once again accept, like it did when it had wisdom at the beginning of the crisis, to depoliticize this issue, to end its stubbornness and accept Quebec's request, which has been nuanced and ready to negotiate, to ensure that soldiers remain in place in long-term care homes in Quebec for a necessary period of time during this emergency? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. At no time was this debate politicized. On the contrary, Chair, our armed forces from the onset were ready and happy to help out. I've spoken to many of them, and they know that they're making a difference. And we will continue to discuss this with Quebec to help our seniors and the most vulnerable members of our society. Mr. Blanchet, you have 43 seconds left. Are we going to give it to Mr. Sainte-Marie? Perfect. Mr. Sainte-Marie. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank my leader for his generosity for these 43 seconds. On the same topic, Quebec is asking the Army for help in its long-term care homes until September. What is the government saying to this request? The Honourable Minister. Chair, we're aware of the fundamental role that our armed forces are playing and the difference they're making at long-term care homes. And we are continuing to discuss this issue with Quebec. There are several ways we can help out our seniors, and we're going to continue to be there for them. Mr. Sainte-Marie. I agree entirely with the leader. There are several ways we can help out our seniors and for long-term care homes and our healthcare system. And the permanent solution isn't complicated. It's health funding. We know that in the mid-1990s, the Liberals chose to slash healthcare funding, and nothing has changed since. This has led to the pressure on the healthcare system that we know, and even more so with COVID-19. Does the government recognize that our healthcare services are in hot water now? This is because for 25 years, Ottawa chose to manage public finances on the backs of our seniors and patients. The Honourable Minister. Chair, our government on all levels is working to protect Canadians against COVID-19. We've increased funding to provinces and territories by $500 million to help them fight the spread of COVID-19. This is in addition to $40 million that we're already giving to provinces every year. We're going to continue to work with the provinces and territories to fight COVID-19 together. Mr. Sainte-Marie, well, these are lovely words, but we've seen a higher increase in expenses than funding. So if we look at this $500 million announced for COVID, and $115 million was given to Quebec, and the Quebec government has said it will cost $3 billion. So what the federal government is offering is not even 4% of our expenses. So they don't have any lessons to give us about how we manage our healthcare system. Can the government recognize that it has to fund our healthcare systems more for long-term care homes? The Honourable Minister. Chair, since the beginning, we worked with provinces and territories to respond to this crisis. We increased health transfers, provided PPE, and responded to all requests for assistance. It's thanks to this cooperation that we were able to accomplish so much success in this fight against COVID-19. Chair, creating a false dispute between the federal government and Quebec during a pandemic is not a good way of scoring points.
Pause for a moment to allow the console operators to switch out in safety.
Thank you. We're now going to Ms. Sidhu, Brampton South. Ms. Sidhu, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to be sharing my time with the member of Kingston and the Islands. My question is to Minister of Seniors. No Canadian should have to choose between putting food on the table, filling their prescriptions, or paying their bills. During COVID-19, seniors in my riding of Brampton South have faced many challenges, especially those in long-term care homes. Just one long-term care home in my riding has 86 COVID-19 cases and 12 deaths. Furthermore, in Brampton, the median age of those hospitalized from this virus is 73. Regardless of where they live, seniors are facing health, economic, and social challenges. It is very clear seniors are particularly feeling the impact of COVID-19. It is essential that we take care of the most vulnerable members of our communities and ensure they are able to get through these challenging times. Canada's seniors build this country, and it is our responsibility to work with the provinces and territories to ensure seniors receive the care they deserve from coast to coast to coast. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister of Seniors please update the House on how the federal government is helping seniors directly to address the increased financial pressure, and how the Minister is collaborating with provincial and territorial counterparts on seniors issue? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member from Brampton South for her question and her advocacy for seniors in her community. The stories we are hearing are tragic, and our thoughts are with those that have lost loved ones in the long-term care system. The Government of Canada is doing our part to help by providing guidelines to prevent the spread of COVID-19, buying personal protective equipment, helping top up the wages of low-income workers, and sending in the Canadian Forces to help. We will continue to work together with provinces and territories to address the pressing needs in the long-term care system. We also recognize seniors' financial challenges. Seniors in Brampton South and all across Canada are staying safe at home because of their increased risk of the virus. But that has made life more difficult and more expensive for seniors. Groceries are more costly and deliveries are coming at a premium. Prescription dispensing fees have increased because of the new 30-day limits in some provinces. We're helping millions of seniors during the pandemic with a tax-free payment to those on OAS and GIS, which is coming soon. Together with the GST credit payment that came in April, a low-income senior couple on GIS will be receiving over $1,500 in direct financial support. Our government's working hard to help seniors during this difficult time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now go to Mr. Gerritsen. Mr. Gerritsen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The surge of online misinformation regarding COVID-19 has been termed an infodemic by the WHO. While we know that physical distancing is important to keep Canadians safe, we must also be mindful of the importance of sharing reliable, trustworthy information. Not only is it integral to the health of one another, but also the health of our democracy. While the internet can support democracy, bad actors can use the internet to undermine and interfere with it. Malicious actors are, right now, attempting to erode democratic institutions through the spread of malicious falsehoods that create confusion, sow division, and cause harm. My question is for the President of the Queen's Privy Council. Could he please tell us how the government is working to protect our democratic institutions?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank the member for the historic riding of Kingston and the Islands for his question. As colleagues will know, ahead of the 2019 election, our government took decisive action to protect and uphold democratic institutions from interference. Now, with the increasing presence of the internet in our lives, we recognize we must be proactive in the fight against cyber threats and the need to build an internet of trust. In the face, Mr. Chair, of an issue that ignores borders, we're adopting an approach that works with states, businesses, and communities, allowing us to remain at the global forefront of new developments and emerging threats and best practices. That's why our government has decided to take a leading role in Principle 3 of the Paris Call for Trust and Security in Cyberspace to address the threats endangering citizens and our infrastructure and keep, Mr. Speaker, our democracy resilient. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
To Ms. McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will be sharing my time with the member for New Westminster Burnaby as well. So today we heard from the Prime Minister again. There's been questions asking the Prime Minister when he will make good on his promises to Canadians, and Canadians have once again been told that it is their lot to wait. Millions of people impacted by COVID-19 have been forgotten by this government, and people with disabilities are now facing new challenges and increased costs just to survive. It's been 12 weeks since this pandemic began, 5 weeks since this House unanimously passed our motion to act, quote, without delay. Mr. Chair, why is this government still making people with disabilities wait for the help they so desperately need?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question. From the beginning, people with disabilities have absolutely been at the heart of our decisions, and we've put a disability inclusion lens on our government measures in response to COVID-19. That's in great part due to the passing of our historic Accessible Canada Act, and I will take this opportunity to wish everyone a happy National Accessibility Week. And as both the Prime Minister and I have said, I can assure every Canadian that before this week is done, we will have news that they will take very positively. Take care.
And back to Ms. McPherson.
Mr. Chair, last week and just now, the minister said, I quote, we are 3 days from National Accessibility Week, and I would expect something from our government during that week. Has the government been holding back supports for people living with disabilities so they could time an announcement to make a splash?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, absolutely not. In fact, we've been working very hard with our Disability Advisory Group to ensure that what we do announce and the support we do provide for Canadians with disabilities is exactly what is needed and targeted at the people who need it most. I'll remind everyone that we put in force an extra $750 per month for students with disabilities, that Canadians with disabilities have access to the CERB, that we are investing in a number of ways, of course, for the GST increase that disproportionately benefit.
Time just for a very short question. Ms. McPherson, around 10 seconds.
Mr. Chair, people living with disabilities are not publicity tools. If the minister denies that that is what they are doing, then what is the excuse for their long delay on their promise?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I take great offense as someone with a disability that we would do that. We certainly haven't. We are working very hard to provide for everyone, including people with disabilities. I regret that, of course, it's taken as long as it has, but Mr. Speaker, we are not leaving anybody behind.
Go to Mr. Julian, New Westminster Burnaby. Mr. Julian, go ahead.
People with disabilities are the poorest of the poor in this country, and making them wait is simply despicable. But there's one group that doesn't have to wait for COVID relief, and that's Canada's major banks. The Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions has revealed that the sum total of supports for the big banks is now at an astounding $750 billion. And yet banks continue to gouge Canadians and small businesses as they impose massive fees and penalties. Why does this government allow them to act with impunity?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to support Canadians, and one of the ways that we're working to support Canadians is to make sure that they have access to loans. Of course, that means that we need to work with banks, push banks to do the right thing in using the liquidity available to them to get credit out into the markets, to Canadians, to Canadian businesses. We'll continue to work with them. We'll continue to make sure that they help their customers, their clients, so that we can all get through this crisis and get to a better economy afterwards.
Back to you, Mr. Julian.
Well, a few weeks ago, the finance minister promised to keep the banks' feet to the fire. Instead, it turns out this government just wants to give bankers a warm foot massage. These banks have recorded $5 billion in profits during this crisis so far, while small businesses close forever, while Canadians struggle to put food on the table. This government is letting the banks make a fortune from the misfortune of Canadians. Why hasn't the government used its powers to stop banks from profiting from this crisis? Why isn't it stopping the penalties, the fees, and high interest charges on mortgages, credit cards, and lines of credit as Canadians struggle to survive this pandemic?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know that one of the things that we can do in order to ensure that Canadians get through this time is to help them in working with their banks. And that's one of the reasons that we've worked hard to make sure that banks will actually have deferrals on mortgages. There are a very large number of Canadians who have deferred their mortgage during this time. We've also worked with the banks to make sure that they reduced their credit card fees for Canadians that are struggling to pay those credit card rates. And they've reduced them by half in most cases. So we'll continue to push banks, keep their feet to the fire, as the member mentioned, and we'll continue to support Canadians, supporting Canadians not only through direct payments to individuals and to businesses, but also to ensure that they can get access to credit through their bank or through their financial institution so they can get through a challenging time.
We'll now move on to Mr. El-Bouteif. Mr. El-Bouteif,
Mr. Chair. Canadians need some good news. Hockey is our national pastime and something that unites Canadians from coast to coast to coast. The NHL is considering 3 Canadian cities to host playoff games. The Quarantine Act might prevent these games from happening. What is the Prime Minister doing to ensure that at least one Canadian city gets to host the NHL?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I would agree with the member opposite that we're all looking forward to resuming our favorite pastime, which is watching the NHL. And I'll tell you right now that Public Health Agency of Canada has been working very closely with the NHL to understand what their plan is, to make sure they protect the players, to make sure they protect the staff that support the players, and to understand how we can work as a country to protect the communities in which they may locate. I look forward to having more to say about that in the near future.
And back to Mr. El-Bouteif.
It was revealed that the Liberal Minister Joyce Murray allowed her WeChat social media platform to be used to advance the interest of an arm of the Chinese Communist Party. Does the Minister accept responsibility for this attack on Canadian journalists?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister made clear 2 things. First, that person was not part of her network, and second, she does not share the views that were shared.
Mr. El-Bouteif.
Is the Minister aware of the espionage activities of that United Front carries out on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll answer in French. The Minister clarified 2 things. First, this person was not part of their network, and secondly, the opinions expressed by that person were not shared by the Minister.
Or an active participant in the efforts by the communists to muzzle Canadian journalists.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think the honourable member, whom I respect very strongly, is going a bit beyond the customs of rationality and reason, and I will encourage him to come back to reason and rationality.
Mr. El-Bouteif.
Well, Mr. Chair, someone should take responsibility for this. So does the Minister or the government take that responsibility? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, the Minister involved made 2 things very clear. First, that person was not part of her network, and second, the views that the person expressed are not shared by the Minister.
Back to Mr. El-Bouteif.
The Minister admitted to the Quaker that her own political staff managing this WeChat. This is someone who is prepaid by the Canadian taxpayers, if you allow me. Why is the Minister helping China to attack global news?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would repeat once more to make sure that the honourable member understands very clearly that the Minister concerned made 2 things clear. First, that person was not part of her network. Second, the views expressed are not shared by the Minister.
Mr. El-Bouteif.
Mr. Chair, it was Joyce Murray's own Liberal-branded WeChat group that was advancing the lawsuit against global news. Either the Minister is fully accountable or she has been duped by the communists in China. Which is it?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think this is going beyond, again, reason and rationality. I have made clear, very, very clearly, I think, the views and the context in which this happened, and I believe this should be satisfactory to the member of the House.
Sam Cooper is an investigative Canadian journalist who has uncovered many different criminal rackets that can be linked back to Beijing. Has the Minister apologized to Sam Cooper for attempting to shut down his work?
The Honourable Minister.
Chair, I'm going to repeat it in French because apparently what I said wasn't clear. First, the Minister clearly stated that this person was not part of her network, and second, that the opinions expressed by that person were not shared by the Minister.
Mr. El-Bouteif, about 40 seconds remaining, Mr. El-Bouteif.
How much?
40 seconds.
40 seconds. When will the minister apologize to Sam Cooper and Global News?
The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président,
Chair, I'll repeat it once again to ensure everyone's understood correctly, because it's important to be clear. First, this person was not part of the minister's network. And second, the views expressed by that person were not shared by the minister.
Last one, Mr. Abouteif, go ahead.
I will pause for 21 seconds, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Zimmer, Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies. Mr. Zimmer, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question today is to Minister Bill Blair. I wrote him a letter seeking clarification on the CBSA definition of what a bore is and the conflicting definition that it has with the RCMP's definition. So we sent that clarification May 12th. Mr. Speaker, I was a little bit surprised to see that Minister Blair had actually responded to my letter on Twitter. This is his exact tweet. There's misinformation circulating online surrounding the types of guns that were prohibited in Canada on May 1st. To be clear, 10 and 12 gauge shotguns are not prohibited in Canada. Canadians who use these guns lawfully, including hunters and farmers, can continue to do so. So, Mr. Speaker, just a quick look at the reference table. I will just quote 6 12 gauge shotguns that are actually now on the prohibited list. The Adler B210 bolt shotgun, 12 gauge. Alpha Arms 15SA 12 gauge semi-automatic shotgun. The Axer MF1 semi-automatic shotgun, another 12 gauge. The Canuck Havoc pump action shotgun, another 12 gauge. The Daria Arms VR90 semi-automatic shotgun, another 12 gauge. And the Eternal FX12 semi-automatic shotgun, and Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, another 12 gauge. So frankly, Mr. Chair, it wasn't myself who was misinforming Canadians, it was this minister. Will he stand up and apologize to Canadians for misleading the public?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to stand before this House and provide some clarity. And quite frankly, we listened to Canadians and we listened to the concern of Canadians who expressed fear within their own communities from the rising proliferation of certain types of weapons that were never designed for the purposes for which firearms were intended in this country. Clearly, in our culture and in our traditions and in our law, firearms are exclusively for the use of hunting and sports purposes, and weapons that were designed for soldiers to use in combat to shoot other soldiers have no place in Canada. And Mr. Speaker, that's why we took action. And we took decisive action in keeping our promise to Canadians to strengthen gun control laws. Mr. Speaker, we continue to work with the RCMP to ensure that the public firearms reference table is updated as quickly and thoroughly as possible. But let me be very clear, Mr. Speaker. Despite the claims made by the opposition members, regulations for standard shotguns used for hunting, such as the 10 and 12 gauge shotgun, are still not prohibited. Right. But it may also say firearms that include designs, receivers, or other variants of rifles, such as the R10 and the AR-15, are prohibited. The RCMP is doing their important work to update the public firearms reference table as quickly as possible to keep Canadians informed and safe.
Back to Mr. Zimmer.
Mr. Chair, so for everybody out there watching, that was a non-answer. There are 12 gauge shotguns that are on that banned list, Mr. Minister, and you need to apologize to Canadians for misleading them. I have another question about our sport shooting community, and we have a bunch of retailers that are left out in the cold by this decision. Already deemed ineligible for the Canadian, Cassandra Premack, the co-owner of KKS Tactical Supplies in Prince George, projects that her business will lose up to 45% of their annual revenue thanks to this ban. With no buyback program coming anytime soon, what is this government doing for the thousands of sporting goods store owners who have been left out in the cold?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to acknowledge the member's strong advocacy on behalf of the firearms industry, manufacturers, and retailers. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure this House and all Canadians, our focus is on public safety, keeping Canadians safe. We have implemented an amnesty period that will allow us time to bring forward legislation that will deal effectively with the compensation of people who have lawfully acquired these weapons. And until then, we have put in a non-permissive grandfathering amnesty which will protect those individual Canadians from any criminal liability.
Time for one short question. Mr. Zimmer, go ahead.
I have a question from a constituent, Malcolm Duchek, wants to know why the government didn't review and update your emergency stockpile to ensure we would have the necessary supplies when the pandemic hit.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As we've covered a number of times, the National Emergency Stockpile is under review. As I've mentioned in this House, we know that we have a system that works very closely with provinces and territories to assure that we have the equipment and the antiretrovirals in place. Mr. Speaker, this is a global pandemic like the size of we've not seen in 100 years, and we have a lot of work to do to prepare for the next one.
We'll now move on to Ms. Wong in Richmond Centre. Ms. Wong, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, June the 15th is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. It's a sad reality that the levels of financial, physical, and mental abuse against our seniors are increasing, especially in the wake of COVID-19. Last Parliament, this House, and this government agreed that action was needed to address financial fraud targeting our seniors by unanimously passing my motion M203. When will this government take the steps necessary to protect Canada's increasingly very vulnerable seniors?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to address a very significant concern for our country and for our seniors, which is rising abuse, ageism. And I want to assure the member that we have taken significant steps in a variety of ways, and one of them is to enhance the money that we've provided for New Horizons for Seniors so that we can enhance programs throughout the country in all communities that can support seniors to not only get through this pandemic, but to address the important issues that that are occurring with abuse. I also want to make sure that
have to leave it there and back to Ms. Wong for your next question.
Mr. Chair, on May the 12th, after a delay of nearly 2 months, the government announced a one-time payment for seniors collecting OAS and GIS. Last week was OAS payday, and the promised top-up was nowhere to be seen. Mr. Chair, how many more months must Canada's seniors wait before this government honors their commitment?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank again my colleague for the question. Many Canadian seniors are facing significant health, economic, and social challenges due to COVID-19, and our government recognizes that, and that's why we did take significant action to provide an additional payment. We will be delivering these payments automatically as soon as possible within weeks, and beneficiaries do not need to apply. We will continue to find ways to support our seniors during this difficult time. Thank you.
You, Ms. Wong.
Mr. Chair, during my last opportunity to ask a question in this place, I inquired if seniors who chose to defer OAS payments to a later date would be receiving the top-up or not. We then received correspondence from the Minister's office indicating that those seniors will not be receiving the top-up. Can the Minister confirm this?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I can confirm that those that are have deferred their payments because typically they're in a better financial situation, maybe continuing to work, and as a result of that, they have access to other opportunities through CERB if they should lose that employment. We will not be providing those payments to those that have deferred their benefits.
Back to you, Ms. Wong. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, can the Minister confirm that the eligibility cutoff for the OAS GIS top-up was June 1st, 2020?
Minister.
That is correct.
Ms. Wong, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, formal and especially informal caregivers are an important part of healthcare in this nation. Their contribution is crucial as governments are trying to ease the strain on our healthcare system that COVID-19 presents. Could the Minister please let us know what measures, if any, they will be rolling out to help take care of the caregivers?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our government recognizes how important caregivers are in the lives of sick and injured family members. We've introduced the new Canada Caregiver Credit, which provides tax reduction of up to $1,071 for expenses of the care of dependent relatives with infirmities, and $335 for expenses for the care of spouses and children. We introduced a new family caregiver benefit, which provides up to 15 weeks of VI for adults caring for critically ill or injured adult family members. We will continue to assess the needs of Canadians.
Ms. Wong, we're going to try and get one last short question in here. We've got about 30 seconds left, so a very short question, and we'll have time for response. Go ahead.
Could the minister provide an estimate dollar figure on how much of the dollars announced on May 12th for the New Horizons program has been delivered?
Go ahead, the Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We have undertaken the process necessary to determine the best distribution of these additional funds, and we'll have more to say on that soon. Thank you.
We'll now go to Mr. Joël Godin. Please proceed, Mr. Godin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On May 18th, the Prime Minister announced at his daily press conference that his government would be taking additional steps to help businesses that needed further assistance. The Prime Minister said that he would be broadening the scope of the Canada Emergency Business Account to include family small businesses that pay themselves in dividends instead of a salary. Mr. Chairman, 2 weeks after the announcement, small businesses are still waiting for the measures to be implemented. I'd like to remind the government that this isn't an election campaign. We're facing a crisis, and action is urgent. When will the program be amended? The Honourable Minister.
The honourable member for that really important question, and indeed how important those small businesses that he has described are to our country. And as of now, over 650,000 small businesses have accessed the Canada Emergency Business Account, and the member's absolutely right. We need to make sure that additional support is provided to those additional businesses to which they now qualify. We're working very hard to make sure that that support is there for businesses, and very soon they will be able to get that support through their financial institutions. Thank you so much.
Je reviens à Monsieur Godin.
We'll go back to Mr. Godin. Please proceed. Mr. Chairman, along the same lines, in the announcement made by the Prime Minister in his daily conference in front of Rideau Cottage, the Prime Minister said that small businesses employing contractual people, such as hair salons, would be eligible. Even if the hair salons in Quebec have just opened, they're still facing financial difficulties. When will they recover that essential financial assistance to pay their bills? When will they see that? The question is very simple, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the member is absolutely right. That hair salon, all of the businesses in Quebec and indeed across Canada absolutely need the support, which is why we introduced the Canada Emergency Business Account. That criteria has been expanded. Those businesses will get access to that support, and very shortly they will be able to get that support through their financial institutions. We're working very hard to make sure that that is there for them at this very difficult time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Godin.
Mr. Godin, your next question. Mr. Chairman, the Minister has just said now, but it's not currently accessible. I understand that they're working hard, but it needs to be made available now. I agree with her, but it isn't available. During the same daily soap opera, the Prime Minister also said that under the Canada Emergency Business Account program, the Minister would be working hard to help business owners and entrepreneurs who are using their personal bank accounts instead of a business account. Those entrepreneurs are still waiting. For these entrepreneurs who have given it all, when will they receive some assistance? What can we tell them? The Honourable Minister.
The Honourable Member, I want to thank him for his incredible advocacy and raising that very question on behalf of all of our small businesses. And I want to assure the honourable member and indeed all small businesses across this country that we are working hard to make sure that they are going to get this support in addition to the various measures that already are helping many of our small businesses across the country. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Je reviens à Mr. Godin.
Back to Mr. Godin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A different sector now. The tourism industry doesn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. When will the government put in place a plan to save this industry, which generates more than $100 million in Canada? Many countries have a plan to save this economic sector. When will entrepreneurs, owners of tourist attractions, restaurant owners and hotel operators have the tools they need to rebuild the tourism sector in Canada? The Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank my colleague, Mr. Godin, for this important question. I share his concerns with respect to the tourism sector because many of them are very much impacted by the pandemic. That's why we've come forth with a number of measures, the wage subsidy, for example, the $40,000 loan, among others. We've also come forth with money under the FAR program in Quebec. The agency is responsible for delivering it for the tourism sector. So if there are cases in his riding that he would like to work on, I would be more than pleased to help him work on that.
I will now go to Ms. Wilson-Raybould in Vancouver Granville. Ms. Wilson-Raybould, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chair. Today is our 16th COVID committee meeting, and certainly while this committee has been and remains important, so too are all aspects of our democracy and our institutions. I believe, and I've heard from many constituents, that we need to ensure that the House of Commons resumes on September 21st. There is no question that there are critical issues that we need to discuss, issues both domestically and globally. Will the government commit to taking all necessary steps to ensure that we will meet in Parliament on September 21st, whether virtual, in person, or a similar manner as we are today?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for her important questions. Monsieur le Président, toutes les législatures.
All parliaments in Canada have had to adjust to the pandemic, Mr. Chairman. And we are ensuring that there is a maximum number of questions and discussions. And in order to recall a fuller parliament, we will need to be able to vote remotely, and we have to be ready to do that.
Thank you. While all Canadians can look with shock and horror at the events unfolding south of the border, we cannot be complacent in our own country when it comes to issues of racism against Black Canadians, Indigenous peoples, and other marginalized groups. With respect to Indigenous peoples, we have made strides forward, yet we are only now beginning to come of age as a country. There is still systemic racism. We still have the Indian Act. We still have significant levels of over-incarceration of marginalized people. I know for certain there has been significant work done at the Department of Justice on necessary sentencing reforms and restorative justice measures to address the overrepresentation of Indigenous peoples in the justice system. And there is a clear plan for getting rid of the Indian Act through rights recognition. We know what needs to be done. Will the Prime Minister please tell this country why this government has failed to support these comprehensive and transformative plans? Nice words need to be translated into action. If not now, when? If not us, who?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I entirely agree with the member that when it comes to Black communities in Canada, the United States, and around the world, they continue to experience anti-Black racism and grieve the loss of life in their communities, and frankly, far too often. I agree that there is anti-Indigenous racism. With COVID-19, we have seen anti-Asian racism exists, and that's exactly why my focus remains in Canada on Canadians. We have a lot of work to do. The Anti-Racism Secretariat was set up in October 2019, but I look forward to working with the member because I will be focused on outcomes. We need to do better, and it's time for outcomes and action now. I'm committed to doing that work.
Ms. Wilson-Raybould, go ahead.
Thank you, and I definitely agree that we need action and we need it now. And relatedly, today, as we know, is the 1-year anniversary of the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls report and their calls to action. Many ministers of the government have stood in this committee in the last few days and emphasized the importance of hearing the calls for justice that we are across the country and around the world. Well, the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls reports has 231 calls for justice. Can the government commit today on the 1-year anniversary of the report to release the action plan on MMIWG? More consultation should not be an excuse for inaction.
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for the question and for her ongoing work on this. Today, our hearts are with the families and the survivors of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and two-spirit and gender diverse that we've lost. It is, as the member said, that it is this week that we also need to deal with the issue of racism that actually is a colonial legacy that we need to undo. That this is heartbreaking what is going on. We have put in concrete actions to stop this national tragedy, and we are working with our provincial and territorial partners and Indigenous partners to put in place a national action plan that will allow Indigenous women and girls and two-spirit diverse people, gender diverse people, walk safely anywhere in this country.
With that, we'll move on now to Ms. Gazan in the Winnipeg Centre. Ms. Gazan, go ahead, your question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In February 2016, advocates working for the Walk for Justice initiative stopped counting the names of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls 2S LGBTQIA people when they got to 4,232. Does this government understand that this is a crisis?
The Honourable Minister.
Absolutely, and I thank the member for her ongoing advocacy, and I was very pleased with Minister Vandal to speak with the Manitoba Coalition this morning, and I too have been with Gladys Raddick and Bernie Williams and the people on that Walk for Justice. We've been fighting for a national inquiry for a very, very long time, and we are very grateful now that this first ever national inquiry has meant that the provinces and territories will work with us to respond.
We'll now go back to Ms. Gazan. Ms. Gazan, go ahead, your next question.
Mr. Speaker, the former commissioners of the National Inquiry noted in a letter today that this government has, in quotes, 1 year of inaction with lack of transparency, close quotations. If this government agrees this is a crisis, why did they choose inaction to address it?
Minister.
Well, I have to say to the member that the concrete actions that we have put in place as a government are changing the lives of Indigenous women and girls and two-spirit and gender diverse people. Even the family liaison units in each of the victim services, customized services, are making the families feel supported as they seek justice, as they have healing, and as they advise us to put in place the concrete actions that will have no other family have to go through.
And back to you, Ms. Gazan. Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, those weren't my words, those were the commissioner's words. This government had 8 months to act before COVID-19. We have the technology to meet in groups. We are using it right now. They called Manitoba ground zero for this crisis, and yet it took the government a full year to meet with the Manitoba Coalition of Families for Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls. This government is using the same excuse to continue to discriminate against First Nations children living on reserve. When will the lives of Indigenous peoples matter to this government?
Honourable Minister.
Well, I will say to the member that I think that the the changes to Child and Family Service, the legislation that allows nations to take jurisdiction over their own children and youth is one of the most important things and a true legacy of the concrete actions that we are dealing with. It is so important that we listen to the engagement that Pautudik has done, that Michif Women have done, the tremendous advice that we have had as they were able to get together to advise us on what should be in a national action plan. We will not let the families and survivors down. We will get this done.
To you, Ms. Gazan. Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, that program has no funding. The Native Women's Association of Canada reported that 1 in 5 Indigenous women have experienced some sort of violence during COVID. That's 1 in 5. Given the increase in violence due to the pandemic, will this government stop making excuses, properly consult, and immediately put in place an action plan, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, I'm very proud to tell the member that in the work that we are seeing in all of our partners, as the first ever national inquiry that requires a response from all the provinces and territories, all the provinces and territories are working on their plan that will be lifted up into a national action plan. I think the member understands that the absolute amazing collaboration in the Yukon government with their chiefs and with the Women's Circle is an example as the
Ms. Gazan, we've got about 30 seconds left. Time for a short question and response. Go ahead.
Sure. Broken promises is all we're getting from this government. They promised legislation on UNDRIP and broke it. They promised to release a national action plan 1 year after the release of the national inquiry. They failed to do so. They refused to comply with the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal and continue to turn a willful blind eye towards violence against Indigenous women, girls, to us LGBTQIA people. Despite legal obligations to do so. When will this government stop breaking the law? When will they act?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, I hope that the member will take a look at the website where we have listed all of the concrete actions that we've done, all of the engagements we've done, and I hope that she will join us on the calls with all of the provinces and territories as they walk us through their plans that will stop the tragedy and allow Indigenous women and girls to walk safely on the streets wherever they live.
I will now invite Ms. Normandin, the member for Saint-Jean, to speak. Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In recent days, we've talked a lot about guardian angels, those asylum seekers from Haiti and other places like Congo who are on the front lines taking care of our people. That we made a statement in the Bloc Québécois to thank them for their dedication, and we've also presented motions twice for their files to be prioritized and to be processed quickly. A simple question. Does the minister share our vision that we should be fast-tracking these files?
La ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Qui souhaite pour répondre?
Okay. Bill, can you?
Merci. De la santé joue un rôle essentiel dans les.
These people play an important role, and we are deeply grateful. All eligible asylum seekers are receiving a fair hearing before the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada. We continue to examine the situation, and I hope that we will have news shortly. Ms. Normandin. Mr. Chairman, where there's a will, there's a way. I am happy to see the minister thanking them and agreeing with me on that. But when it comes to the means, the minister has a lot of means available to him with specific sections of the Act. Humanitarian issues, for example. And the minister has the authority to take action under these specific provisions. Does the minister plan to take action?
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Chairman, I share my colleagues' views. We know that there are extraordinary people doing heroic work in our long-term care facilities. We need to look at how to help them. We are working on proposals with the province and will have more to say shortly.
Madame Normandin.
Ms. Normandin. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to hear that we're on the same wavelength, but we need to see them walking the talk. I'll continue to make some suggestions. In addition to making these humanitarian issues a priority, he has other powers. He can add criteria to help our asylum seekers who've worked on the front lines in the long-term care facilities. It would be a way of thanking them. Will the minister do so? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Chairman, we have the best asylum system in the world. We have a good reputation that is respected. We will continue to seek out ways to acknowledge this contribution, these excellent contributions, in Quebec and across Canada. I will be working with my colleagues in the Bloc and in the provinces on solutions. Ms. Normandin. Mr. Chairman, I'll pick up the ball and run with it and continue to put forth ideas. Our guardian angels are often separated from their families because the family reunification files are dragging on. There are delays. There again, the minister has the power to bring these files up to the top of the pile. Will he do so?
Thing I want to say is that the work that we are doing at the border with regards to family reunification is very important, and there are some compassionate cases which we are working through. This government has done more to reunite families than any other in the history of the country, and we will continue to work with all of our colleagues in government to ensure that we're keeping families together while not in any way compromising the health and safety of Canadians.
And we'll go back to Ms. Normandin. Well, I'll continue with my list of suggestions because it's not just the families' reunification files are delayed, but oftentimes workers have to continue to renew their files. There are delays there as well. They can't do the training because they don't have access to the same scholarity as permanent residents. Mr. Minister, one final question. Are you ready to bring their files up to the top of the pile? Are you ready to take action? The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. We have a 3-year plan, Mr. Speaker, that is going to ensure that we continue to attract hardworking individuals who will contribute to the economy. We have a plan that will continue to unite families, and we have a plan that will continue to protect the world's most vulnerable. This is a plan that is there, that is transparent, and I look forward to debating with my colleagues and with all of our provincial partners to continue to see that immigration is an economic driver and that will continue to drive the values of this country. Thank you.
We'll now move on to our next and last question for today's grouping of questions to ministers, and that goes to Mr. Mazur. Mr. Mazur, Dauphin Swan River, Nipawin. Mr. Mazur, go ahead, your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Canadian farmers across my constituency and across this country are frustrated at this Liberal government that continues to make their lives and careers more difficult. Farm families aren't asking for more debt. They need relief now, not months from now. When will meaningful reform to business risk management programs be announced?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Encore une fois.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Luckily, in Canada, we have risk management programs available to our producers. There are 4 main programs: agri-stability, agri-recovery, agri-investment, and agri-protection. And I know that these programs are programs that the producers want to see be made more generous. We are working on improving them.
Mazur, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, despite the COVID-19 challenges, farmers have stepped up now more than ever. They continue to work hard to ensure the food supply chain is functioning and continue to ensure that Canadians are fed. Nothing stops Canadian farmers, Mr. Chair. However, this Liberal government is letting Canadian farmers down by failing to reform business risk management programs. Will the Agriculture Minister commit to announcing business risk management programs reforms before July 3rd so farmers can make informed decisions before the new agri-stability deadline? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, once again. I agree with my colleague on one thing. Our agriculture producers are working very hard in situations that are quite difficult. And it's difficult to be a producer. You have to adjust to climate, nature, trade partners, now the pandemic. So that's why we've added additional programs, especially for beef producers, for processors, pork producers, to facilitate the arrival of foreign workers, where we've got additional resources we've added to the Food Inspection Agency.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Agriculture Minister claims to stand shoulder to shoulder with Canadian farmers. However, Canadian farmers know that talking points, mixed messages do not mean action, and an online calculator is not a replacement for meaningful support. Can the minister explain what the specific next steps are in guaranteeing a positive reform to business risk management programs so Canadian farm families can be confident that there is stability in growing and selling crops?
The Honourable Minister. Well, I'm sorry, but I have to reiterate and remind my colleague that in 2013 they cut to $413 to risk management programs. And if it hadn't been cut, facing the crisis would have been easier. We're working with the 10 provinces and territories to reach an agreement with all of our partners that is the best possible for our farmers.
Mr. Chair, the minister has pushed the next FedPrev territorial meeting back to October. But will she keep her promise to make public the results of her business risk management review in July?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The official meeting with my provincial and territorial colleagues has been postponed, but we talk weekly. We hold Zoom meetings, and we're talking about the best ways of providing immediate support to our farmers in the current situation.
Mazer.
Mr. Chair, does this minister believe that the government's actions are sufficient enough for our farm families to succeed? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Better is always possible. So beyond, in addition to the risk management programs, we're working very hard with industry stakeholders and our provincial and territorial partners to put in place new improvements for the programs.
Mazer, go ahead. A short question. We got about 40 seconds left. Go ahead.
Thank you. The unprecedented nature of this pandemic calls for unprecedented action, not recycled programs by a government that does not take the action of agriculture seriously. Canadian Federation of Agriculture asked for $2.6 billion in support and said that the government has provided falls woefully short in addressing the needs for agri-food's mounting losses. Why has this minister failed to listen to the organizations that represent Canadian agriculture?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chairman, I listen to industry stakeholders all the time, and business risk programs represent $1.6 billion per year. It could be higher. There is a lot of money in agri-investment. We have agri-recovery with an average of $15 million. We increased it to $125 million. We've also increased money for the Food Inspection Agency and others. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The committee proceedings for today. Accordingly, this committee stands adjourned until tomorrow at noon.